Hello and welcome to The Last Word. Should Narendra Modi be immediately declared the BJP's prime ministerial candidate, or would that be an impetuous mistake? My guests are the editorial chairman of Outlook, Vinod Mehta, the former editor of The Times of India, Dilip Padgaonkar, the national affairs editor of The Telegraph, Manani Chatterjee, and hopefully joining us soon from Gandhinagar, the well-known Tehelka and Asian Age columnist, Ashok Malik. Vinod Mehta, should the BJP immediately declare Narendra Modi its prime ministerial candidate and end the debate that can only divide the party and instead try and unite behind him?
Well, Karan, I must confess this is not a question uppermost in my mind. But since you ask it, I suppose to end this kind of uncertainty, I think they might as well declare him. But Karan, I think one of the things you must remember is the manner in which this announcement has been made or will be made. It's not still been made, and Mr. Advani might still throw some googly, but the manner in which it has been made or is going to be made suggests that there is a both overt and covert opposition to Narendra Modi. In overt opposition we know, but the covert opposition consists of 2 or 3 chief ministers, Parekar, Chauhan, Raman Singh, and this will constitute a continuous fifth column inside the BJP, waiting for their opportunity to strike. So although you may announce his candidature, there is a fifth column in the BJP which will look out for every opportunity to bring him down.
Let's look at that fifth column, Dilip Padgaonkar, as Vinod Mehta so colourfully terms it. Do you believe that the opposition the Modi candidature faces from people like L.K. Advani, Sushma Swaraj, Anant Kumar, Murli Manohar Joshi is so strong that there's a danger that the party could split if Modi is made prime ministerial candidate? Or is that a little bit of a journalistic exaggeration?
That is more than an exaggeration. I don't think any split is on the cards in the BJP, and the reason primarily, Karan, is because behind Modi's candidature is the RSS. The RSS, which is claimed to be a promoter of cultural nationalism, and says that it is no more than an ideological guide or mentor of the BJP, has now been quite upfront in deciding the next prime minister candidate of the party. Secondly, please don't forget that these leaders whose names you've mentioned really do not matter as far as the cadres of the BJP are concerned. I think the cadres are without any question impatient to get Mr. Modi anointed as the prime ministerial candidate as quickly as possible. And paradoxically enough, I believe that Modi's candidature is also something that will answer the prayers of many parties who are opposed to the BJP, including, I suspect, the Congress.
Except that that won't be a factor that the BJP will bear in mind if they do make Modi their candidate. But another factor that could be holding back some elements of the BJP from anointing, so to speak, Narendra Modi, is fear that the Vanzara allegations have raised damaging doubts. And there may be more such waiting in the wings to emerge, and Modi's anointment will be the moment they become public. Is that a concern in BJP circles?
No, I think the people who are backing Modi, and that is the overwhelming majority of the rank and file, the RSS, and so you have these two and fairly large number of leaders. I don't think they're really concerned about Vanzara's revelations because, I mean, the whole Modi's whole Godra, post-Godra image that the secularists and liberals have a problem with, that's not a problem for the BJP. But I think what Modi is in such a hurry to be anointed and his supporters are in such a great hurry to anoint him, the reason my own reading is that they fear that after this round of assembly elections, if Shivraj Chauhan, for instance, or Raman Singh were to get another term, then the anti-Modi lobby, as it, you know,
will grow stronger.
Will grow stronger, and Advani and all will say that there is another man. Because at the moment you're saying Modi is a hero because he's won 3 terms. You have another chief minister who's won 3 terms. So they want to preempt that possibility and make Modi anoint him as soon as possible.
Vinod Mehta, your belief that in fact the Advanis, the Sushma Swarajes of this world could revolt, if I can use that yet more colourful phrase, if Modi becomes Prime Ministerial candidate, has been effectively countered by Dilip Padgankar, who says that they don't have the stature and the capacity, and secondly, because the RSS is supporting Modi, they won't be able to stand up to the RSS's support. Do you think you're misreading the depth of division in the BJP and you're perhaps being, as I was saying, a little journalistic?
No, I think, Karan, you're right. I mean, they may not want to revolt, but you can from inside, drip, 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 you can attack Modi, you can keep making statements, you can continue to give him half-hearted support. The fifth column, as you remember, is inside, not outside. So there will be a opposition inside the party and they will see which way the wind is blowing, but Modi will constantly have to look over his shoulder at what these people are doing and what these three chief ministers are doing. As Manani points out, that if two of these guys get another term each, they can equally and legitimately say that we've also won 3 terms. So I think, you know, and also I must come back to this one point, Karan, that the manner in which this announcement is going to be made, it's still not made. He has, as I said, threatened, bullied, sulked. I think that he must be very upset that though he has the support of the rank and file in the party, the overwhelming support, the top leadership of the BJP has been very stingy and very niggardly in supporting him, and literally the RSS, which is fronting this move, has had to twist their arms.
You know, let's take up that point about the RSS, Dilip Padgankar. You said that with the RSS behind him, it's impossible for others to stand up. But the word today, and it is only speculation, that Mr. Advani is still standing his ground. He's reluctant to accept Modi as Prime Ministerial candidate. And Advani is therefore using his stature to resist that announcement being made. Is the RSS strong enough to sweep aside Advani, Sushma Swaraj and everyone?
Well, Karan, don't forget that it is the RSS which wrapped Mr. Advani in the knuckles for his Jinnah secular comment. It is the RSS which didn't at all feel concerned that Mr. Advani had stayed away from the Gujarat conclave where Modi was made the campaign chief. And therefore, I think for the third time, as soon as he threw a fit and said he was going to resign from all those posts and so on, it is again the RSS which went and cajoled him, persuaded him, and he fell in line. So I do not think that Mr. Advani has the what it takes to continue to defy the RSS, because without the RSS, Mr. Advani is nothing.
All right. You know, given that it's quite clear that Modi will help the BJP because he'll infuse its cadres, he will bring spirit into the party, would Modi being made Prime Ministerial candidate ensure a more certain victory for the BJP in the state elections, which are a big test that they have to still face? So would it help, and is that another reason to push him into that job now rather than wait till later? I know that's the opposite of what you were saying a moment ago.
Yeah, no, the only test we've had so far was in Karnataka, where the Modi factor did not help the BJP at all.
And in fact, it lost seats wherever he campaigned.
So I think Mr. Shivraj Chauhan definitely does not think that Modi is going to help him. Because I think one of the reasons that Advani, I mean, a lot of people think that Mr. Advani is against Modi because of personal ambition, because he wants to be Prime Minister himself. But there's another reason where there is a point of view, which is a minority point of view in the BJP, is that Modi is actually not a surefire winner, because he will polarize the electorate so much that the anti-incumbency, anti-Congress mood can, some of the secular, liberal and the minorities who would have otherwise maybe voted for a non-Modi-led BJP will all polarize behind most likely the Congress or in regional parties.
Well, would they really? Because in UP, for instance, they would polarize presumably behind Samajwadi and BSP.
No, I think the Congress's hope is that even in UP, for the and when it comes to a Lok Sabha election, Congress tends to do better than in an assembly election. But I think, Advani himself is a minority position, because most people in the BJP feel that Modi will get, even if they don't reach majorities out of the question, but at least Modi has the potential of creating a way for them.
Let me put the opposite of what Manani said to you, Vinod Mehta. She's arguing that one of the concerns that BJP has about making Modi their prime ministerial candidate is that the liberal anti-Modi, anti-BJP vote could crystallize around...
Not the BJP, Advani's camp, which is a minority view in the BJP.
Okay, the Advani camp believes that the anti-BJP, anti-Modi vote would all crystallize around one party, presumably Congress. But is the opposite also not true, that if Modi was to become prime ministerial candidate, a lot of the Hindu voters might actually resurrect themselves and crystallize around Modi, thus improving the BJP's chances? Can you not argue that proposition both ways?
I think you can. And I think that is the proposition that the RSS and the section of the BJP which is backing Modi is hoping for, that he will do precisely that. This polarization that some people fear is what I think in some ways the BJP is banking on. So I'm again saying that Mr. Modi may be the right candidate for the BJP. That is a different point. But the internal dynamics of the BJP are as important. And can I just say that Mr. Modi has defied the RSS before, and at his age, he has nothing much to lose if he continues to defy the RSS. So Mr. Advani is not the kind of person who listens to the RSS. On the Jinnah question, he defied the RSS. So, and at his age, if he is not going to have a last shot at the job, he might as well give it in. He might as well make one last stand.
Except you mean Advani, not Modi. It's Advani who's been defying the RSS. Modi is in fact the RSS favorite boy at the moment, not their bête noire. But very quickly, is there a sense, Dilip Padgankar, that if the Modi candidature is delayed until after the state elections are over, you could end up with both Raman Singh and Shivraj Chauhan claiming that they too are three-time consecutive winners, and at that point, the momentum to propel Modi to the top job could diminish, and therefore is this becoming a sort of now or never moment for Modi? He either becomes PM candidate in the next few days and weeks, or it might never happen because it might be more difficult after Raman Singh and Shivraj Chauhan have equaled him as three-time winners.
I would completely agree with you. I think any further delay to officially anoint him as the candidate is going to be disastrous for him. And I think they will have to be very careful calculations about what this will mean in terms of the impact on the rank and file of the BJP and of the RSS. So, I mean, if I were to place a bet today, I'd say that there are 7 chances out of 10 that Mr. Modi will be given that position within the next week or so, because everyone knows that it's best. You know, oddly enough, I think both sides would stand to gain. Either Mr. Modi proves his charisma in the campaign that he will conduct in these 4 states going to the polls very soon. If he succeeds, well, his hands are strengthened. If he doesn't succeed, then obviously the other side will be even better placed to further delay what seems to me to be inevitable.
All right, let's take a break at that point and come back and raise the other key concern that worries the BJP about making Mr. Modi their prime ministerial candidate. Can he pull together enough allies to secure the top job if the BJP falls short on its own, or will he repel them and make the job much more difficult? That's in a moment's time. See you after the break. Welcome back to The Last Word. So the BJP immediately declared Narendra Modi its prime ministerial candidate. Joining us now from Gandhinagar is the well-known Tehelka correspondent and columnist Ashok Malik. Ashok Malik, let's come to the question whether the BJP with Modi as its PM candidate can win enough seats to force allies to support it and form a government with the BJP, Or might it fall short at about 150, 160, thus rendering Modi himself a handicap? That's clearly an issue that many in the party have to grapple with when they decide whether they should make him the PM candidate immediately or not. What's your answer to that question?
Karan, if the BJP wins 150 or 160 seats under Narendra Modi, then, and if it still wants to form a government and not sit in opposition, then it's fairly clear it will have to find another candidate at that stage after the election. But the BJP's entire pre-election calculation seems to be that for the first time since Vajpayee, for the first time in a very long time, we have a politician who excites our support base, who has the potential to help us optimize our individual strength. So let's not look at too many allies at the moment. Let's not look at the larger NDA formula. Let's try and maximize our strength, and let's see how far that takes us. Maybe it'll take us far enough for allies to say, look, there is no alternative to this guy and to this party. That is the calculation, and I can't see the party changing its mind on that calculation before the election.
Vinod, let me put that to you bluntly. Many, like Ashok Malik, believe that, in fact, by declaring Modi their prime ministerial candidate, the BJP could create a snowballing momentum leading to some sort of wave behind the BJP. Today, as you look at the situation in your eyes, is that wishful thinking, or could it actually emerge and happen?
Well, Karan, none of the opinion polls seem to suggest that there is any Modi wave. In fact, it's not entirely clear that this snowballing effect of this is going to happen. But of course, if it happens, then it happens. Then the whole game becomes much easier. BJP gets 200 plus, and the whole matter easily sorted out. You see, the problem is that on paper, there are many NDA allies or potential NDA allies who will not be able to support Narendra Modi. But in politics, we have this curious game called outside support. So if NDA gets close to 220, 230, you might find one of these implacable foes of the NDA and Narendra Modi attaching itself in like TDP in outside support. So it all depends how the dice is thrown as the result.
We don't know how the dice will be thrown, and we don't know what the result will be. But let me therefore put a different question to you. What is it that Modi can do to convince the dissenters or his critics in the BJP that the time has come to make him its prime ministerial candidate now?
You know, he is the de facto prime ministerial candidate. The only way he can not be made prime ministerial candidate is by declaring somebody else. But I think given the kind of dissent from people like Advani and Sushma Swaraj, for Modi to show that he's really totally committed to making the BJP the #1 party, as he says, he should just quit as Gujarat Chief Minister.
Voluntarily say, I'm stepping down.
Stepping down from Gujarat, and for the next 6 months, I'm focused on India. I mean,
that would give him a moral claim to be PM candidate.
Because then you don't need a safety net. You're so confident. You know, it'll send a signal. I don't know whether he has the courage to do that.
It's a big gamble, but you need to take a gamble if you want the big job. Dilip Pathankar, what about Arun Shoury's point made to Devil's Advocate 10 days ago that the UPA government, and perhaps Dr. Manmohan Singh in particular, because of the scams they're surrounded by and their inept governance, are Modi's best election agents? And as we get closer and closer to the election, they'll be doing vicariously more and more to help Modi get that top job. Do you accept that tongue-in-cheek remark?
I would accept that, but I would also accept the contrary. Namely, that the best possible agent that the Congress could have found to improve the Congress prospects is Narendra Modi. Because as soon as he is declared the prime ministerial candidate, I think he's going to have to accept the fact that his record in office will be subjected to even greater critical scrutiny. That includes his claims about performing an economic miracle in Gujarat. But above all, that includes his extremely disturbing personality. Last point, Karan, let's not forget that even the prospect of his being a prime ministerial candidate meant that one key ally, which had been with the NDA for 17 years, deserted the NDA. That was JDU. And as of now, other than Ms. Jayalalitha and the Anna DMK, I don't see anyone. I mean, the Shiv Sena, as you know, has been extremely wishy-washy on the question of Modi. So I don't know where Modi is going to get more people in his net, even if his party were to get 200 seats.
All right, I'll let you have the last word. We'll end this particular show with that imponderable question. Who is the better support for the other? Congress for Modi or Modi for Congress? My thanks to all three for my guests for joining me. And my apologies that we didn't have more of Ashok Malik. The OB from Gandhinagar, sadly, was malfunctioning. See you tomorrow. Goodbye. Good night.